Welcome to the Westport Library. Today's program will begin momentarily. Supported by Verso Studios, created locally and shared with the world.
Mic is, of course, too high for me. It would be hard not to be. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Ross, and I'm delighted to welcome you tonight on behalf of smart kids with learning disabilities and the Westport Library to hear Jake Sussman, the founder and president of Superpower Mentors, speak about his experience growing up here in Westport with learning disabilities and ADHD, and his work with Superpower Mentors. Smart kids with learning disabilities, and we need to have a slide change here. Okay. Is the nonprofit organization that I founded in Westport, as it happens, and serve as executive director. Our co-sponsor, the Westport Library, is, as you know, graciously hosting, recording, and live streaming this event. A few words about Smart Kids, and then I'll introduce Jake. Okay. We're a nonprofit organization based now in Norwalk, serving families in Connecticut, Westchester County, and throughout the country and around the world, to empower parents of the 1 in 5 children with learning and attention differences to help their kids succeed. Next slide, please. We produce educational programs with leading experts, both in person and online, free award-winning digital resources, including a monthly e-newsletter that's sent to 10,500 subscribers, a weekly blog, and a very comprehensive website with hundreds of parent-friendly, action-oriented articles. Our research-based Countdown to Kindergarten Early Literacy and Social Emotional Skills program, developed with the considerable help of Mary Parmalee, the library's Director of Youth Services, who's out here somewhere, is being delivered currently in preschools in Bridgeport and Norwalk and in libraries in several communities. Next slide. Oops, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves. If you just saw the testimonials, I particularly like your newsletter, gave me the name that became my battle plan, Smart Kid with LD. Each year, we honor winners of the Fred J. Epstein Youth Achievement Awards at our annual gala. Asia Capel from Urbana, Illinois, who's up on the screen, won for her outstanding work in robotics at the age of 14. She was our youngest winner ever and is currently thriving as a junior at Olin College of Engineering. We invite you to sign up to receive notices about upcoming programs and our free e-newsletter. Okay, I am delighted now to introduce Jake Sussman, who struggled with learning disabilities and ADHD while growing up in Westport. I believe he has a few things to tell us about this, and who has dedicated his career to empowering kids, teens, and young adults with learning differences. Based on his own experience, he launched Superpower Mentors in 2020 to guide neurodiverse young people around the world. The organization has conducted over 7,000 sessions, guiding hundreds of young people to have confidence in themselves and embrace their differences as the first steps toward success. Jake's personal story and the organization he set up to help other young people like himself are particularly meaningful to us at Smart Kids, reflecting the advice we've given parents since we first launched in May 2000, some 24 years ago. These kids are smart. They have significant strengths and talents along with their weaknesses. When we support their strengths, they'll be able to accomplish great things. Please welcome Jake Sussman.
Thank you, Jane. Hello, everyone. Hello, Westport. How we doing? Beautiful, beautiful evening. All right, so first I have some thank yous. Smart kids, thank you for hosting and giving me this platform to share this important story. You do such important work in Fairfield County and across the country. Thank you to the Westport Library. You know, the irony of this whole night is libraries used to be a place that I avoided growing up. But the work that is being done here to create a stimulating, inclusive learning environment for all learners is obvious and incredible. Just look at this place. It would be a place that I would run to after school, and I'm not just saying that. And for my teachers in the audience, you'd have the most important job. You are responsible for teaching the next generation. Your jobs are difficult. And the fact that you're here is proof that change is already on its way. And for everyone else, parents, moms, dads, students, professionals, thank you again for coming out on this beautiful Tuesday night. All right, so tonight, we're gonna go on a journey together. It's gonna be a journey into the past, present, and the future. This is going to be a journey of vulnerability and authenticity. And I want for all of you to leave this incredible library with actionable tools that you can implement immediately in your classrooms and at home. To leave inspired and optimistic no more should you have to feel like you're heading into the unknown. So let's begin. Please play the short clip. Thank you.
My friends, I kindly ask you to please shut your eyes so you can fully understand the story that has left me so traumatized. Imagine yourselves as the child that always smiled. You were wild, you were beguiled, until the day you were profiled. This is the story of the forgotten child. Now, what I am about to tell you will truly make your stomach churn, they said. I have major concern, Mr. and Mrs., but your child simply can't learn. The child was labeled disabled. He was told face to face that he should stop his chase to a higher educational place because he couldn't read any book in the bookcase? This is an absolute disgrace. Those words should never come out of anyone with a knowledge base. From that point on, he was taken out of the classroom all day long, from homeroom to 3 hours past eating in the lunchroom. He became paranoid, full of anxiety and scared because he was told he was impaired. It felt like nobody cared. He was misunderstood. As a result of educators thinking he was no good, he just needed someone to think that he could. You see, negative labels are destructive, counterproductive, and obstructive. Now, I'd like to ask you to please open your eyes. To some surprise, that forgotten child is standing before all of you guys. He defied the lies of this public educational enterprise. You see, what they didn't know was that this forgotten child had an epic thirst for knowledge. He refused to acknowledge, you will never go to college. He took those words and turned them from frustration into motivation. He was lacking an academic foundation. So his parents pulled him out. This cultivation they call public education. Let me bring something to rouse. Just imagine your academic journey like the construction of a house without the proper support. That house will fall short. He was finally put in a place where his mind was no longer a disgrace. It was a place that built his academic base as strong as an iron case. They saw him for everything he got. This isn't no school of thought. It is something that the public educational system simply did not. And it was the first time that the forgotten child actually smiled since the day he was profiled. Now let me mention one of the most notable individuals in all of mankind with the mind that was also defined like mine. Let's take someone like Albert Einstein, a man of credibility that had a learning disability he was lacking much valuability despite educators much acridity, but that didn't stop Al's life journey to discovering the theory of relativity. So take a minute while I spit some poetry. What's the difference between you and every person the eye can see? Truth is, there's nothing. Because each and every one of us have our own unique ability. Einstein said it perfectly, that everybody is a genius. But if we judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking that it is stupid. Don't you see? A wise man once told me that the power comes from the young people knowing that they could change the world. Don't ever give up your shot. Your minds are all you've got. It's time we change this public educational melting pot, turning your minds into a robot. You get my gist? In this world craving to coexist, it's time that we work with the kids that are missed, with those who fit the mainstream schools perfectly, and then those who learn differently. Together, I insist. Thank you.
But how? But how do we work with those kids that are missed? These powerful beings that are so dismissed. Please, allow me to assist. I wrote that poem because I was that percent in public school that it didn't work for. That was 17 years ago. How are you supposed to reach every student in a class of 30 when at least 5 have a learning difference? This poem is an emotional reflection of how most kids feel when they are so misunderstood for how they learn and don't have the words to articulate it. Communicating and knowing how to tap into a student with ADHD, dyslexia, or other learning differences is not easy. Believe me, I was your worst nightmare. But that is exactly why I do what I do and why I am here tonight. So even though it was painful, I am grateful for my experience in public school, so I can now dedicate my life to making sure that we finally have tools to ensure that pain doesn't happen again. So, on that note, who am I? Well, let me first tell you what I'm not. I'm not a teacher. No. Not a researcher. No. I'm not a therapist or a parent. This is who I am. I am your student that you came here to learn how to reach. I am your child that will refuse to pick up a book. I am your student that is constantly a behavioral issue and speaks out of turn, and I am your child who hates school and sometimes even myself. But I am also your child with dreams and passions and who has the most unbelievable imagination. And I am your student with so much potential, but doesn't seem to believe in myself enough. My role in all of this world is to make your jobs as parents, teachers, and professionals easier. And here's how I do that. I specialize in unlocking our children's willingness to learn. As the founder of Superpower Mentors, a mentorship program that matches neurodiverse youth to their own mentor who not only shares the same learning differences, but more importantly, the same interests. We've been there. We have had to fight our way out of the educational trenches ourselves. Our kids look at us as hope. Our parents of those children look at us as hope, and to help believe that the future is gonna be okay, which it is. At Superpower Mentors, we have completed over 7,000 sessions with kids and teens from all over the world. We are changing lives every day, and I'm gonna brag for just a minute that while the national college dropout rate in our country is 40%, having a learning differences, we have a 3 times higher likelihood of dropping out. One of our strategic partners, the Joseph James Morelli Foundation, if you don't know them, get it on your radar. They are the largest scholarship foundation in the country for those pursuing STEM majors, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, who have dyslexia. Now, they had a 30% dropout rate amongst their students. Over the past 3 years, since working with us, not a single student dropped out of college. We're talking about massive, massive impacts. We want to focus on finally being proactive instead of reactive. I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait anymore for it to hit the fan before we start. Let's finally take control. So here's the deal. We are all here to learn strategies on how we can better reach our kids with learning differences, but actually all children, right? Think about why you came here in the first place. Why are you spending this time on this gorgeous night to come hear me talk? In fact, I want you to really think about, why are you here? Everyone has a reason. It's all in the why. It's why we became so uncomfortable watching that video. It's why this whole topic is so emotional. If we want to inspire, right, a generation of minds to retain information long term, we must look past the content itself and look at how we can not only deliver it, but what will inspire someone to want to be open to it. My why is to deliver a message and a perspective on actionable and tangible ways to be more relatable and relevant to neurodiverse minds by someone who lived it not so long ago. You see, guys, tonight is actually a really important night. You see, I grew up in Westport. I love this town, and as many of you know, Westport is home to some of the most brilliant and creative minds. It's a town that prides itself on art, theater, business, STEM, entrepreneurship, but most importantly, community. If we want to cultivate a generation of minds who are going to solve today's problems, which, let me tell you, there are plenty of, it will take minds who look at the world differently, minds who think differently, minds that are neurodiverse, and recognizing that neurodiverse minds are the ones that hold the key to solving our world's most pressing challenges. We must build them up from the ground and not force them to fit within the mold of what we think is normal. Let's rethink neurodiversity. It's not just having an IEP. Just because you have an IEP or a 504 doesn't mean you should be looked at as a burden or that you're stupid, right? It's actually much more than that. An IEP is about unlocking a student's mind. Check this out, right? If an IEP is meant to unlocking a student's mind, which can then lead to them achieving academic success faster, which then in return will help schools get more funding, wouldn't we want to make it easier to give it out? Right? That's what we're talking about. We need to rethink it. The whole thing. From here on out, let's go in with that open mind. ADHD, dyslexia, autism, this is not the end of the road. It is only just the beginning. But it's important to remember that I wasn't always this confident, right? For me, it happened all the way back in 3rd grade. This, here I am, little Jake. I think I went to kindergarten wearing batting gloves, right? But for me, third grade, this little Jake running around with no care in the world, I didn't really know what ADHD was. All I knew was that I would sit in class while the teacher was talking and gaze out the window or spot that fly flying around the class and pretend it's some rocket ship flying through space. Yeah, that was me. Group projects and Art Smart, I don't know if they still have that, but I loved that. But independent reading time, no way. I became my teacher's worst nightmare. I was a regular at the buddy teacher, I don't know if they still have that either, or even principal because I was out of control. I started to build resentment toward reading because of the way it was being taught. It didn't seem to click. It was like I was being forced to read something that I didn't like. Does this sound familiar? Now, I want to take you all home with me because what I just shared with you is not the real Jake Sussman. So let's go home. We're gonna get off the bus, right? We're gonna run inside. I'm gonna kick off my shoes. Of course, not putting them back in the proper place in the closet. I'm gonna throw my backpack down, open the fridge, grab whatever I can find, right? Obviously forget to clean up after myself, run back, clean it up, and then grab my things and go downstairs as fast as I could. You see, I love trains. I love trains. I didn't have Minecraft or Roblox, right? My Minecraft was Thomas the Tank Engine. It's all we had. And I would start building for hours. I would build towns out of shoeboxes for buildings, and I would make the tracks go on the other side of the room so I could pretend what's happening on the other side. My imagination was free. I was alive. Do you want to know what I was daydreaming about in class, looking out that window? I was imagining this model world with mountains and towns and rivers, right? I could hear the sounds of the clickety-clacks of the wheels passing by. It was a world that I can fully immerse myself in. My mind was on fire. Why was I so different? You see, I'm told that I have this focusing problem, right? Yet I can focus for hours at a time building my train set. If I had such a focusing problem, shouldn't it be universal? How come I can focus for this long? What's the deal here? Perhaps I have a gift, maybe even a superpower, but back then, I hated it. Whatever it was, I was different. Taken out of the class, I didn't understand. I would come home after school and not eat any dinner with my family because my medication didn't wear off in time, and then eat this massive meal right before bed. So by the time that I was in 5th grade, I was starting to figure it out pretty well, right? I loved my teacher. I started to build trust with the resource room staff. I was excited to finally start reading, making some progress. I was getting familiar with the building. And then all of a sudden, 6th grade came, middle school. My first big transition. Everything that I was working toward got flipped upside down. I was 4 grade levels behind in reading at this point. It was a disaster, and nobody seemed to understand. I would get these heat flashes in class out of fear of being called out to read, and when I did, I would stutter. I couldn't do it. Kids would start laughing at me, and I quickly became an outcast. My guard was up. I was getting bullied, not just by students, but by teachers too. It seemed that everyone around me became obsessed with my behavioral issues, that I had to fit into the normalcy of what everyone else defined it to be, that I was so different, and that I had to change my ways to fit within the mold of the curriculum. I was so alone. You see, the more, here's my clicker, forgot about this, right? No? Oh, there we go. There we are, all right. The more that I was getting pushed aside in school, the more I would spend in my basement. Pretty cool. Thomas the Tank Engine turned into an actual model railroad that I started building when I was 12, and I'm still building it. It's a never-ending project. But my parents saw this, right? Their instincts were good. They saw, right? And they invested in my outlets. And if you're sitting in this audience and you're saying, yeah, that's great, Jake, but my kid doesn't have any outlets, don't worry, sit tight, there's hope. Your child does have outlets, and we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, all right? But again, why was I so different? I didn't understand, and I started to become angry and frustrated. All I wanted to do was to get it right, but I didn't have the words to express myself. I was called lazy, and when I would get overwhelmed, teachers would say, calm down, Jake. And I was even told to my face that college would be out of the question. School, at this point, became unsafe. And by the time that I was pulled out, on that random Tuesday in December of 6th grade, I was filled with fear, anxiety, and stress. I was paranoid. I wet my bed. I was afraid of the dark. I stuttered and developed tics. I completely shut down. My parents were left with no other option but to pull me out of school. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered. College, high school, none of it. At this point, my entire relationship with learning was physical pain. Looking back, do you want to know what I realized? I'll get this thing right at some point. All right, you want to know what I realized? For the exception of my parents, everyone around me became obsessed with the things that weren't working. So what happened was that it started to manifest into something bigger, right? I started to assume the identity of the things that weren't working. My identity became my behavioral issues. It became my anxiety. It became my focusing challenges, and it became the fact that I can't read and can't do math. And there's actual research proving this, and I'm gonna go into that in a minute, but what about my outlets? What about my explosive imagination? What about my strengths and my gifts? I know that I'm so much more than this. But the thing is, it isn't just me. In fact, 1 out of 5 people are neurodiverse. There's so many of us out there that go through this every single day, and they share stories that are very similar to the one that I just shared with you. You see the missing link here, which is interesting, that I had like probably 8 different professionals growing up. You know, you got the therapist, the psychiatrist, the speech pathologist, the academic coach, the executive functioning coach, the tutor, the advocate, and the teacher, and all these different people. And if I called you and you are one of those people, thank you, you have a very important role to play, right? But what about someone that I could relate to, right? Do you want to know what I needed? It was that. And everyone was like, oh, well, Jake, Thomas Edison and Michael Phelps have learning differences too. Like, great, as much as Simone Biles, Elon Musk, and Thomas Edison are great role models, when you're in it, in the trenches, having Thomas Edison as your closest role model seems a bit far-fetched, right? Don't you think? Do you want to know what I really needed? It was a mentor, right? It was a role model that I can look up to, but not just any mentor. It was someone who made it through those educational trenches and won. Someone who would play Fortnite and Minecraft and nerd out with me over model trains, and someone who also had ADHD, who I can look up to like having an older brother. That is what I wish I had. Imagine being able to say, wow, if Jake can do it, I can do it. That's powerful. But this isn't just a nice concept here. There is data proving the power of mentorship. Check this out, right? The data on mentorship that impacts the general population is unbelievable. 81% of those who have a mentor, this is general population data, this is not from us, right? 81% of those who have a mentor are more likely to participate in extracurricular activities. 55% of those who have a mentor who face opportunity gaps are more likely to be enrolled in college. 52% more likely to go to school, and 37% less likely to skip class. It's great. But the thing is, there's still one more piece to the puzzle we have to go deeper on. We have to recognize that kids with learning differences struggle with peer relationships. So it can't just be any mentor, right? It's gotta be someone who has learning differences. So let's check out the data on that. Again, research suggests that after working with mentors, students with learning disabilities and ADHD experienced lower levels of anxiety and depression while showing an increased level of self-esteem. And the data checks out. At Superpower Mentors, this is what we found, that 93% of those who have a mentor have seen an improvement in their emotional well-being. Over half sees it within the first month, and 91% of our parents say that their mentor was responsible for their child's confidence and self-advocacy skills. It's unbelievable. But the question is, why and how? So now we're gonna go into this really cool topic called stereotype threats. Has anyone ever heard of this before? If you don't, it is fascinating, all right? So one of our advisors and a personal mentor of mine, Dr. Fumiko Haft from the Yale Haskins Lab and Dr. Caroline Richter from the University of Alabama in Birmingham conducted this fascinating study called stereotype threats on specifically with those with learning disabilities. Now, what is a stereotype threat? Basically, it means that if you have a label, people are more likely to identify with that label if you fall within a specific stereotype group. So, as it relates for learning differences, here's the example. Let's take dyslexia. So, I have dyslexia, so therefore I can't read. Right? Stereotype, they can. I can't tell you the amount of dyslexics that I've spoken to that literally believe that they cannot read as a result of their dyslexia. Or let's take ADHD. Oh, I have ADHD, so I can't focus. Stereotype. Actually, people with ADHD can focus better than most people. It's called hyperfocus, right? Okay, let's also take something like social anxiety. I'm not gonna go to that party or prom or what a football game. I have social anxiety, I'm just gonna stand back. Now, am I saying that there's not pain? There is absolute pain, but this study is fascinating because one of their recommendations on how we can overcome those stereotype threats is by having a role model that fits within the same stereotype group, is able to lift someone up beyond that stereotype. It is unbelievable. And I actually have a personal connection with this, of where I actually believed that I couldn't do math as a result of my learning disability. And I never actually learned it until COVID. 24 years old, and I'm still struggling, but I'm learning. So, going even further than that, is that at Superpower Mentors we found, right, that we have over 100 mentors, right, from NASA engineers to professional animators to video game developers, professional music artists, athletes and entrepreneurs. We have some in the audience here, all of whom are saying the same exact thing. Where was this when I was a kid? It's the #1 piece that we get whenever we interview mentors. It's all what they're saying. So, having someone relatable is the missing piece of this equation, and mentorship is that solution. So, I think point made that mentorship is needed, but the problem is that finding one is not easy. That's why I'm going to teach you how to become one. So now, who's ready to start learning about a mind like mine? And how are we gonna do it, right? It's to start thinking like a mentor, and we're gonna take action. This is coming from the source. of what we all wish we needed. This is not coming from some textbook. This isn't coming from some scholar that has never struggled once in her day in school. This is real, and this is proven. Okay, so first, before I get into the whole piece here, on your chairs, you may have noticed a card with a QR code. I know there is a lot of you in this room, and I know this is very personal and an emotional journey. So if at any moment that you would like to ask me a question that you may not feel comfortable asking in front of everyone during our open mic question at the end, please go ahead and scan that QR code at any time, and we will reach out after this event. There will, like I said, be an open mic at the end, and after all of this, thank you for that little light, and after all this, we're having a kind of like an after mingle thing at Basso right after, so just make sure you can head over there. We can all keep the conversation going. All right, so everyone, I'd like to ask you again to please shut your eyes. Don't worry, I'm not going to do any poetry this time, but now we're going to be transported into a live mentor training session that we put all of our mentors through in order to become a superpower mentor. We have to recognize, too, that there are some in this audience who may not have a learning difference or struggled in school, but that's okay. Together, let's go back in time to that little you who was misunderstood or struggled to be seen. We've all been there. Come on. Let's keep not only our kids now in mind, but that little you as well. You are now one of our 100 mentors. We go over a lot of key pieces of information on how to connect with neurodiverse individuals. So now you can open your eyes. First, we have an order of business that we have to talk about this word that I keep using called neurodiverse. All right? Harvard defined this term as the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways, and there is no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and differences are not viewed as deficits. At Superpower Mentors, we say, same brain, different mind. No mind is the same. At the same time, we have to also recognize that all of those labels up there, right? You got ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Tourette's, autism. You have all these different things, right? We have to embrace it. Can't ignore it. You got to embrace what you have, but we can't let it define us. So the first step to becoming a mentor is to understand the ultimate goal. Now, we've surveyed hundreds of parents, and this is the two main goals that they said. Right? It's for your kid to be happy and independent. But, I mean, happiness, that will come. So let's talk about independence for a minute. We can talk about self-advocating, time management skills, finding healthy outlets, executive functioning skills, navigating transitions, which we're going to all talk about tonight. Don't worry. But the thing is, I can talk about this all day, right? But none of this is possible without establishing or re-establishing trust with your child or student. And here's how we do that. Boom. All right. So we've created this little equation, which is ironic because math wasn't my strength. So vulnerability plus relatability equals rapport. Rapport plus reliability equals trust. So we're going to break down each one, and then we're going to keep moving. So let's talk about vulnerability for a minute. This is one of my favorite quotes. In our culture, we associate vulnerability with emotions that we want to avoid, such as fear, shame, and uncertainty. Yet, we too often lose sight of the fact that vulnerability is also the birthplace of joy, belonging, creativity, authenticity, and love. So, adults in the room, we've all gone through stuff in our lives. If our kids are going through something similar, it's okay to say, me too. It's okay to get on their level and bond with them over that. You don't have to have it all together because guess what? No one really knows what they're doing anyway, all right? So it's okay to be honest and vulnerable with them. So now that we're getting vulnerable, let's get relatable. If you're gonna take something away from tonight, this is probably one of the most important slides. Usually they say put it at the end, I'm putting it right now. All right, so let's talk about outlets. First, what is an outlet? So an outlet is defined as an activity that we naturally gravitate toward that helps us feel in control, especially when we're at a time maybe of loss of power, something that gives us confidence. We all have an outlet, every single one of us, right? It could be a sport, a hobby, music, socializing, maybe a passion. Now there's also unhealthy outlets such as drugs, drinking, smoking, escapism, or activities used for avoidance behavior. Now, we took this one step further and categorized it. So, we have 3 different categories of outlets that we need in order to feel confident with ourselves. One is an outlet that boosts our heart rate. Why do I say heart rate? Because I don't care about exercise, although it's important, but I don't care about exercise. It's actually about oxygen to your brains. We need to fuel our brains with oxygen. That's very, very important, especially cardiovascular exercise. It's huge. Once we get our heart rate outlet, there's also an outlet that boosts our creative expression. It's a thing that helps us, well, feel expressed and heard. And then the final category is an outlet that boosts our passion, which is the thing that will motivate us to throw the covers out of bed in the morning. So if you have a kid that's struggling to get out of bed, right, we gotta make sure that they have a passion that gets them excited. Now again, if you're also here saying, well, great, Jake, that's fantastic, but my kid doesn't have an outlet, well, we're gonna dissect this all together here, all right? So, let's do this little scenario. If you can't see this, I apologize, but I'll read it out loud. So we're gonna take our friend Johnny, all right? And this is a classic, right? So Johnny first loves video games, okay? Who doesn't love video games now? But we wanna know specifically what games does he play, because everything that we do and love is not random, right? We do it for a reason. So in this case, Johnny loves racing games, Mario Kart in particular. Note that. What else does he like, right? Now remember, we wanna make sure we plant thought seeds. That's what we call them, right? Because it helps kids better recall information. Having a learning difference, sometimes we struggle with that. So it's nice to be able to say, well, okay, so what about, like a sport? Do you like to play kickball outside? Or do you like to do this or that? So that is, again, helping them start to recall that information. So, Johnny likes Legos, soccer. What kind of position does he play? Because again, it's not random why he may fall into a specific category in the field. In this case, Johnny is a goalie. Note that. He also loves movie night, which is superhero movies. He loves sour candy and puzzles. So now the question is, what does all of this teach us about Johnny? There's 2 important points. 1, all of these outlets are stimulating. Stimulation, hands-on, he's moving around, right? He's building something. It's the video games, it's the movies. And also it's him accomplishing tasks, feeling like he's going somewhere, right? We love video games because it's like achieving levels, right? Like we're making progress in something. So that's something to keep in mind, that when it comes to our outlets, actually none of this stuff is random. So at the end of the day, our confidence is hidden within our outlets, the things that we love, even if it doesn't make any sense. We need to utilize and understand those things that we love to then help us tackle challenges. That's how it's actually supposed to be, and the answer has been right in front of us this entire time. Some of my greatest confidence discoveries have came from my outlets. I actually taught myself how to read by reading model train books, because I loved it. So recapping this is be relatable, right? Parents, when was the last time that you actually played video games or mindlessly scrolled TikTok sharing mindless funny videos with your kids? right? If that's what they're loving, it's an opportunity to just understand them and learn about them and be cool. With that, show up. That's it, very simple, right? Show up, that's what we need from you. We go through a lot. I know it's hard, I know we're annoying and frustrating, but like, that's it. We love being consistent and knowing and predictable, right? So if I get life happens, things change, right? But if we can use it as an opportunity to teach our kids a lesson, that's huge. All right, so let's, now that we've built trust, let's talk about communicating effectively. All right, so it is very easy to jump into problem-solving mode. This technique, ARR, helps us hold space for our kids. Instead of solving the issue, which is a common piece, right, we're gonna use this tool to take a step back. So the ARR technique is an effective way to ensure that communication is clear, empathetic, and mutually beneficial between you and your child. This also forces us to not go into problem-solving mode right away. By actively listening, restating to confirm and understand, and relate with relevant insight, your child will feel heard and validated, leading to a more meaningful and proactive conversation. Then, ask the right questions. So, how was school today? Right? Ever say that before? Oh, it was good. It was fine. It was okay. I don't know. We'll talk about I don't knows in a minute. Those are not gonna start conversations. So instead, we're gonna say something like, oh, what was something that you did at recess today? Right? It can start that conversation. We can go even deeper. Oh, I played kickball. Oh, like, with who? Let's talk about I don't know, because that's a classic fallback. The way to get out of an I don't know is saying, what don't you know? What don't you know? Don't you want to engage in a conversation, or are you just not interested in talking? Okay, so saying what don't you know will teach our kids to not just use I don't know as a classic fallback. If we want to help them learn how to have engaging conversations, we can actually take them into that next step by saying, what don't you know? All right, this is a good one. React versus respond. Let's talk about this for a minute. So reacting is often immediate, emotional, and without much thought, leading to potential conflicts, right? Responding, on the other hand, is more thoughtful and usually leads to healthier interactions. But obviously, it's way easier said than done. A big sore point for me was growing up was around doing the dishes. Whenever that I would get called out to do the dishes, it was usually followed up with something like this. I didn't do the dishes because I was probably moving so fast already on to the next thing, probably running into my train room. So the question is, what was the root of my reaction? We have to think beyond the surface here. My reaction wasn't directed toward my mom. I love you, Mom. I know you're in the audience, right? While it can be viewed as disrespectful, it was a reflection of myself feeling like a failure. As a parent, it's so easy for us to get caught in the things that are emotional. And if we react emotionally, it can then help get us in trouble. The problem is that our kids are like sponges, right? And by observing our parents. When parents handle situations by responding rather than reacting, they can provide a powerful example for their children to emulate them. We have to recognize, too, that kids with ADHD are extremely impulsive and struggle seeing how our behaviors impact others. So by focusing on teaching kids awareness of the impact that their actions have on others is most powerful way to teach kids awareness of their behavior. And it's hot up here. Sydney, can you please get me a little paper towel? Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna keep on going. I feel like we're working out up here. So, if you feel your blood boiling like mine, right, it's okay to remove yourself from the situation and come back, breathe, and don't forget that, because breathing we forget, right? And just be calm, right? Don't take it personally either. They don't actually mean it towards you. It's a reflection of themselves. So on that note, let's talk about this for a sec. The classic fight before dinner. So here we go with the scenario. It's 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. You're trying to put dinner out because you're rushing to come hear me talk. Your kid is locked in playing video games or on their phone. You call from the kitchen, honey, it's time for dinner. Nope, crickets. Maybe you go for the second time, the third time, nothing. The fourth time, though, you raise your voice a little bit more. They heard yelling, and now there's a huge blowout again. Any of this happen? No? Maybe? Oh, I see a little of that. Okay. First, we're gonna go into how we're gonna do this differently and put all the things that I just shared to work. So, instead of yelling from the kitchen, we're gonna walk over and sit next to them. Thank you, appreciate that. Woo, okay. We're gonna first go over and we're gonna sit next to them. By doing that, you are acknowledging that they are playing games or are hyper-fixated, which is an ADHD superpower. They can focus so intensely that they may not hear or process sounds very well, which means that they may not hear you, they're not actually ignoring you. Your kids, I got you. Okay, you're going to restate now the request made in a calmer voice, making sure that the game is paused and you now have their attention. You're now responding as opposed to reacting. So now that we have their attention, right, we got them for like 2 seconds. Let's empower them to then tell you how long their level will be done. You're looking for that transitional break. Then, instead of setting the Alexa alarm, because we don't see time the same. When you say, Alexa, 5 more minutes, I don't know what 5 minutes even means. I'm just gonna keep playing with my friends. So instead, you're gonna go on Amazon and buy a time timer. Okay, if you don't know what that looks like, it's this little cool little box, and you can visualize time really well. We need to see time. Then you're gonna walk away. You're gonna put the control on them. And we hope to have a better result, right? Because it's there. It's all right there. The thing is gonna be right under the screen, and they can see it's gonna ding, and if it dings and they don't come, now you got something to say, right? And we're gonna use our strategies we were just taught about reacting versus responding. All right, we're gonna go one step further. Speaking of video games, let's talk about navigating screen time for a minute. So, this is probably one of the most hot topics and relevant issues that parents are facing. Screen time. We need to start getting in a mindset that technology is a challenge, not a threat. 1, practice what you preach. I can't tell you the amount of parents that I speak to that are doing this all day on Facebook, right? Or at night with their kids home. And if your kids are seeing that, what are they gonna do, right? So if you're gonna wanna scroll, don't do it around your kids, all right? Because they're gonna start doing that also. Embrace boredom. Remember our outlets that we just talked about? Right? Let's start to understand other ways that they can find other activities. So if they're playing Minecraft, Minecraft is like model trains. Same thing, just digital, right? So maybe we can get them something to build or a car or something they can immerse themselves in, right? But again, we want to embrace that boredom. Then, how to discipline screen time. Now, for me, I think I was in middle school. I got my phone taken away for a month. No, I'm not gonna go into that. But I was socially confident, right? I had other outlets. I didn't have my entire world on video games where all my friends were. If I wasn't socially confident, there are times that taking that tech away completely can actually cause more damage, okay? So we have to think about, why are we disciplining? Remember the reacting versus responding conversation. Sometimes helping your child understand the impact that their actions have on others versus just taking away their tech could be more powerful, especially after playing that Call of Duty games or Fortnite when they're all aggressive after, right? It's important to show them that the impact of their actions actually can affect others. We have a hard time seeing that. And finally, we have to start looking at tech like dessert, right? Good in moderation, just can't have too much. All right, now let's talk about this elephant in the room here. We learned about the past. We talked about today, right? We learned about our outlets, the foundation, which is the foundation to all of our stabilities here, so that we can be confident in learning some good communication tactics, some screen time strategies. But now I want to talk about the future. The future is scary, right? It leaves a lot of questions unanswered, such as, will my kid launch? Will they get into college? More importantly, will they stay in college? Will they be happy or independent? Will they be able to land a job? These are massive questions that are being asked by our parents. And before I get into this, whatever you think that your child's path should be, or what you see everyone else doing, get it out of your head, please. That's not thinking with a neurodiverse mindset. No mind is the same, remember, which means that no path is the same. It will distract us from seeing what our kids really need. So, let's talk about this. One of the biggest pain points of vulnerability for our kids, which is what all of you may fear, is transitional periods. It's the most anxiety-inducing time, but it doesn't need to be. A transitional period is a time when your entire routine changes, right? It can be a vacation, it could be holidays, which were really hard for me when I would go back to school. Elementary to middle school to high school to college, college to the workplace, and for adults, workplace to workplace, or workplace back home. If we want to prepare our kids for the unpredictable world of the future, we need to make sure two very important things are ingrained in their minds to be prepared for transitional periods. One, understanding their outlets and when to use them. If we truly understand our outlets, we can use that as motivation to then get unstuck and prioritize what's important, right? We got our passion, we got our heart rate outlet, and we got our creative expression. No matter what life throws at us, we will always have those outlets to fall back on. If you don't, you're gonna fall into toxic outlets. Two, understanding time management. Trigger word. But it's actually not about time management, right? Because that's usually that fallback, oh, time management, right? No, it's actually about time prioritization. In order to manage, there it is, in order to manage, we have to know what comes first. What comes first is about prioritizing what we deem, well, a priority. All right, so we've been sitting here for a little bit, and we're gonna play a little bit of a game, okay? So, it's a Tuesday night again, and your kids are sleeping. You're not here, you're home. And you got two options on the table. You can plan your dream trip that you've been talking about, or you can pay your outstanding bill that's been sitting on your miscellaneous shelf. All right? So first, I'm gonna wanna see a show of hands for this. Please raise your hands if you would choose, yeah, please raise your hand if you would choose to pay your outstanding bills on the counter. Wow, some responsible ones in the room. And please raise your hands if you'd rather plan your dream trip. Point proven. Done. When it comes to understanding time, we must first recognize that neurodiverse minds may not look at time the same. What I mean by that is we will most likely do things that gives us a bigger dopamine hit, right? Thus, why we usually wait until last minute, why we're late, why we don't pay our outstanding bills, why we would rather play video games versus do our homework. Let's look at time as it relates to kids in school. Here's high school and below. Pretty much what it looks like. So a typical week here, right? We got 8 a.m. till 3:30 p.m.-ish. Then we got the after-school activities, then dinner. This is their whole life. Is that pretty accurate? Yeah? Okay. The transition from elementary school to middle school to high school is a huge deal. It could be a little scary, right? But time plays less of a role here. Instead, the impact of transition weighs more on their environment, right? You got new teachers, you got peers, you got classes, the smells, it's all new. But this is what really scares me. High school to college. 40% nationally drop out of school. I'm not saying this to scare you because we're going to have an answer here in a minute. 30% of those are freshmen. The number one cause is financial related. The number two is stress and anxiety. Do you want to know why? It's because for the first time in their life, time is a factor as part of their transition. And this is what I mean. Think about it, right? Freshman, first day, right? New environment, new everything, got roommates for the first time, co-ed dorms, which is wild, partying, no parents, dining halls and classes, and on top of all that, I have to have so much confidence in myself that I have to walk in the accommodations office, tell them what I need, and then go to my professors that I don't know and tell them about my learning differences so I can get accommodations. Whew. And time. Nobody told me what to do on a Tuesday in September at 10 a.m. Because up until now, my entire life had classes during that time. If you don't know how to navigate unstructured time, we are going to fail. I'm going to say it one more time. If we don't know how to navigate unstructured time, we are going to fail, period. Most likely we'll end up playing video games all day or finding outlets that gives us an illusion of progress, like scrolling on TikTok. Recognizing that we need to feel like we are in motion, having ADD, it's going to feel like we are on a hamster wheel going nowhere, which then leads to anxiety and then depression. I'll give you an example. One of our mentees came to us 2 months into college, came to us from one of the top schools in the country for learning differences. 2.5 months into college, didn't do a single homework assignment. He was frozen, on the verge of dropping out, spiraling out of control. We had to spring into action. We scheduled meetings with his professors. We talked to the accommodations office, the advisors, everyone. He wasn't going to do it on his own. If we just said, yeah, you should write that email, or you should go talk to that professor, yeah, that's not going to happen, okay? We had to do it with him so that he can feel like he's making progress, because that's what we need. Within a month, we got him stable. How did we do this? We didn't just give him suggestions, which is what everyone else is doing. We actually did it with him. Not for him, but with him. We have to learn the ways. Teach us. But let's go one step further here. How did we get him to want to be open to doing it again? Now, this young man has a passion, right? We used both the passion and creative outlet as his motivation. He wants to become a professional music artist. It's his dream, so we helped him see that in order to become a professional music artist, he needs to spend more time writing music, not just in the books, so he has to stay on top of his assignments in order to be able to focus on his dream. Once we got him grooving, seeing some success, we brought in one of our mentors who is a professional music artist with millions of streams on Spotify. He's actually in the room. Tyler, please wave your hand. There he is. Tyler! Thank you, Tyler! What Tyler did, right, is helping this young man launch his first album. All right? We're talking about huge progress here. He was going from failing to now thriving. That's what we're talking about. And it doesn't take rocket science stuff, although we do have mentors from NASA, right? We were able to instill motivation through his outlets to then help him push through the pain of learning. That's what got me to be open to learning. It was model trains. It wasn't the school textbook that I was reading. He actually called me last week. You're gonna like this. He finished a few A's, B's, and a C, right? Now we're talking. Yeah, now we're talking. Let's go, that's huge. I'm gonna give you another example. One of our mentors, he's a rower for Team USA. He went to Harvard. He has ADHD. He used to get terrible grades in school. He ended up freshman year at a small liberal arts school. He tried out for the rowing team for the first time, thought it'd be cool, and fell in love. Freshman in college, tried out for the rowing team. He told himself that he will go to the Olympics and will do anything in his power to go. Guess what everyone did around him? They said, good luck. And he said, watch me. He realized that in order to go to the Olympics, he has to go to an Ivy League school. So what did he do? He got all of his grades up. He then transferred to Columbia and then to Harvard, which then landed him on a spot on Team USA. He used his outlets to motivate him being stuck and doing terrible in school to then thrive. It's literally right in front of us. All right, so some big takeaways here for transitional periods. Understand your kids' outlets. Remember, the outlets hold the key to igniting a flame to do the hard stuff. Time prioritization. Build the success team. Parents, if your kids are transitioning, make sure that every teacher that they're going to interact with knows the situation. Don't just tell them what to do. Invite them to be part of the team. Your kid is the captain of the ship. We're just the crew. And if we're thinking about college, I cannot stress this enough. The biggest hack in college is the syllabus. For neurodiverse students, it's a silver platter filled with gold. The syllabus should, 99% of the time, tell you exactly what's gonna happen within that semester. And when everything is due, we need that. We need to be able to work backwards from time. We can plug in the due dates and be ahead. This is gonna teach us how to be in control of time. And kids, don't just do what your friends do, right? Reflect on the things that you love and what will make you happy. All right, so we're wrapping up. These are the big main points that I talked about. Building trust, communicating effectively, navigating unstructured time, and transitions. Out of these topics, we're gonna make a commitment tonight. I want you to identify a topic that is a weak point for you. Tonight is where you are going to commit to working on it. Tonight is our night to finally be that change that we've been craving here. To finally connect with our kids in ways that we can only dream. There's a lot of ways that we can uncover this, right? You have Smart Kids, which is the most unbelievable resource, something that I wish I had, right? I am here, we are here. Remember, you can use that QR code. And I want to leave you with one more thing, and that's hope. For the kids in the audience, listen up. I see some of you here. All right? Be with me for one more minute. All right? We're almost done. I'm going to share with you a video that our mentors wanted to leave with all of you tonight. It is a very, very powerful message, and that is that everything is going to be okay. After this video, we're going to then go into questions, and then we're going to all head over to Basso, if you'd like, to join us for some more mingling, meeting some others, and I hope I can see you there. So please, if you can share that video, and we'll get started. Dear young Jake.
Dear younger self.
Dear younger version of myself.
You're in 6th grade right now. I know that you were just told that you would never go to college and that you would struggle with communication skills, and you were just thrown out of classroom because you can't keep up with the rest of the kids.
It's hard to feel like you don't fit in. Being put down and bullied by kids and teachers alike because you learn differently and have fallen behind may seem like a feat you can't overcome.
The work is going to get harder. School is going to become more and more painful to go to every day. The confusion of where you're going in life is going to be in the back of your mind every day.
And I know that pain that you get when you pick up a book and want to read, that knot in your stomach, I get it, because I still feel that sometimes.
People are going to call you stupid. People are going to say, you can't read. I can't believe someone in high school actually wrote that. These moments are going to hurt, and they still do.
With your challenges and struggles comes inner strength, perseverance, empathy, and understanding for others who may be struggling too.
Did you know that while all of us have a brain, nobody actually learns the same?
What you haven't figured out yet is what you are really good at.
Find your outlets, the things that you love, that help you feel in control. Building trains, running, playing the piano.
Working with animals, horseback riding, a love of music.
These are the things that's gonna make you great.
I know you feel low and misunderstood, but that won't last forever.
We don't like to talk about stuff like this, but when you do open up, you'll realize that embracing your differences is way better than actually running away from them.
Find your superpower and use it to make the world a better place for kids like you.
I know it's hard right now, but you will get through it. Wanna know why? Because here I am. You got a long road ahead, but you have people that have your back.
Hang in there. The world needs who you're supposed to be.
Sit tight, bud, because that person's right around the corner.
You are going to change the world one day. Sincerely, your older self, Jake.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. This was a blast. And questions?
Question. If you have a question for Jake, please come up to this microphone so folks watching at home can hear you.
How are you? So my son was the one that's been pulled out in elementary school with the sticky notes, so he would, miss half of this, half of that. Didn't have the transition into middle school because of COVID, but is the freshman that fell flat on his face this year. So where did your parents send you? What did you end up doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I ended up at the Southport School for 7th and 8th grade, and then the Foreman School.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do want to touch on that for a minute, too. No matter what school we can go to, right? Some may not be able to go to a private school, right? Some can, right? I want to mention that what we just learned tonight are strategies of the worst scenario, right? So in the event that nothing is possible, I can't pull my kid out. These strategies, knowing how to understand the outlets, knowing how to build trust with your kid, these are knowing who to talk to, how to build their success team, that's all lined up for any possible scenario that you're able to do. So, yes, question.
Excuse me. I was just curious when you said you helped that child or young man in college who was falling flat on his face, and you went to the teachers and you went to the administrators and you put the plan in place. Were they receptive to that, to have sort of this outside group coming into the school who, to tell them sort of how to access this this kid and how to relate to him? Or did they give you a problem with not being sort of the parent or the official doctor?
It's a really good question. Surprisingly, we found that people are actually more open to it than resistant to it, because if they're resistant to it, what does that really say, right? But to talk on that, though, a little bit more, the way that we handle that is, there will be some times that we'll call with the student, right, the registrar's office, for example, right? They may be scared to do that. So we'll conference call in, but they're the ones that do it, right? Maybe we'll help them write the email, but they're actually the ones doing it because that's teaching them the advocacy skills. Now, there have been times that we will help them write an email and the email that we get is really not the response that we want. That's where we can bring it in and maybe find a time to talk to them as a way of us being a team, not us pointing a finger saying, do this for me.
Hi, how do you help a 14-year-old with bullying, being picked on, he stutters, and he then kind of turns it inward on himself because he doesn't have the tools to handle the peer pressure of what he's getting told every day in public schools, and the administrators aren't doing anything?
Okay. First of all, no parent wants to see their baby struggle, especially when it comes to something as it relates to being bullied. For some of these cases, sometimes, and again, this is where we fall into the things that we can't control. Like, we're trying to get the school to do something, but sometimes we have to take matters into our own hands, right? For your child, having them being able to have those outlets, being able to have that thing that gives them confidence, that's where they will find themselves. I found solace in my train room, right? That was my model train set. And I'd love to talk to you after this as well, but if we can dive in and start to find the thing that will give him the confidence, that's where then he can find himself, and then we maybe find other peers that are into similar things. That will then help lift him up more when you realize that bullies are, most of the time reflecting at themselves, unfortunately. But I'd love to talk further. And also, we do have some mentors here that have dealt with bullies too, and they're all wearing blue shirts, so they're pretty easy to spot. So I encourage you to also talk to them. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's it. On behalf of the Westport Library, I want to thank you, Jake, for the presentation. We want to thank Smart Kids, and we want to thank all of you for coming. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.